The Miami night pulsed with life, the rooftop party at the Lenox Hotel alive with clinking glasses and laughter. Jake Torres, 32, weaved through the crowd, a wrapped bottle of limited edition bourbon in his hands. He'd driven across town to retrieve it, a last-minute favor for his wife, Sophia, who'd forgotten the gift for her boss at home. Jake didn't mind. He was the guy who remembered everyone's coffee order, who showed up early to help set up, who always had Sophia's back. Tonight, though, something felt off. The air carried a weight he couldn't name, like a storm brewing beneath the pink balloons and fairy lights strung across the terrace. Sophia, 30, a rising star in a sleek marketing firm, stood near a table, her laughter sharp and bright as she chatted with colleagues. Jake caught her eye, holding up the bourbon with a grin. She nodded, barely breaking her conversation, her attention sliding back to the group. Jake shrugged it off. She was in her element, work events were her stage, and he was happy to play the supportive husband in the wings. He set the bottle on the gift table and grabbed a drink, scanning the crowd. Couples danced, a man 2 tables away knelt to propose, and cheers erupted as his girlfriend shouted, "Yes!" Cameras flashed, capturing the moment. Jake sipped his drink, leaning against the railing, watching Sophia work the room. She was magnetic, always had been. They'd met 5 years ago at a friend's barbecue, her bold laugh pulling him in like a current. Back then, she'd tease him for his meticulous grocery lists, call him her anchor when life got chaotic. Lately, though, her warmth had cooled. She'd stopped reaching for his hand, stopped laughing at his dumb puns. Last week, she'd muttered Chris under her breath, her coworker's name, not his, while they were cooking dinner. Jake brushed it off, like always, telling himself it was stress, her big promotion, their busy lives. But now, as he watched her, something gnawed at him. She hadn't looked his way in 10 minutes. Not a glance, not a smile. He pushed the thought down, blaming the Prosecco in his glass for making him overthink. Then she moved toward him, her steps deliberate, her glass tilted slightly in her hand. The crowd seemed to part, like they sensed something coming. Jake straightened, expecting a quick kiss or a whispered thank you for the bourbon run. Instead, Sophia stopped a foot away, her eyes locking onto his with a strange, detached clarity. "Stay or go, Jake," she said, her voice loud enough for the nearest table to hear. "Your choice. But if you stay, stop being so, you." The words landed like a punch, casual but cutting. A few heads turned. Someone coughed. A woman in a yellow dress, Sophia's friend, Jenna, stifled a laugh, her hand flying to her mouth. Jake's chest tightened, his breath catching. He searched her face for a hint of a joke, a crack in the mask, but there was none. She meant it. The air thickened. The party's hum faded, replaced by the thud of his own pulse. He opened his mouth, but no words came. Not because he was speechless, he just couldn't process that his wife, the woman he'd rearranged his life for, was dismissing him like a bad waiter. In front of everyone. He felt the eyes on him, the pity, the curiosity. The proposer from earlier glanced over, his new fiancée whispering something in his ear. Jake's hand tightened around his glass, but he didn't break it. He didn't yell. He didn't do anything. Instead, he set the glass down, slow and deliberate, like he was excusing himself from a meeting. He grabbed his jacket from the back of his chair, gave Sophia a nod, polite, empty, and walked toward the terrace exit. The gravel crunched under his shoes as he crossed the patio, descended the steps, and hit the street. No one stopped him. Sophia didn't call out. The gate clicked shut behind him, and the Miami night swallowed him whole. He got into his car, a beat-up Honda he'd had since grad school, and drove. No music, no GPS, just the hum of tires on asphalt. His phone buzzed on the passenger seat, once, twice, then a third time. He didn't look. Part of him feared it was Sophia, demanding he bring the car back. Part of him feared it was nothing at all. He kept driving, the city lights blurring into streaks. 6 hours later, he pulled into a diner off a quiet highway, the neon sign flickering. Open 24/7. He slid into a booth, ordered a grilled cheese he barely touched, and a coffee he didn't remember asking for. The waitress, a woman with kind eyes, asked if he wanted pie. With whipped cream? She added. Jake said yes, clinging to the small choice like a lifeline. As he sat there, the weight of Sophia's words sank deeper. Stop being so you. It wasn't just an insult, it was a verdict. She wasn't tired of an argument, or a moment. She was tired of him. His steadiness, his loyalty, the way he showed up every day, no matter what. He thought of the bourbon run, the card he'd written for her boss because her handwriting was too messy. He thought of the nights he'd stayed in, canceling plans to be there for her, even when she'd barely noticed. And he thought of Chris. That slip of her tongue, and the way her eyes had darted away when he'd asked about it. His phone buzzed again. He ignored it, but the diner's fluorescent lights seemed to sharpen his thoughts. Something wasn't right. Not just tonight, but for weeks, maybe months. The late night work calls, the weekend conferences. She never fully explained. The way she'd started locking her phone, something she'd never done before. Jake pulled out his wallet, not for cash, but for a crumpled receipt he'd found in their kitchen trash last week. He hadn't thought much of it then, just a valet stub from a downtown restaurant. But now, staring at it under the diner's harsh light, he saw the name, Marcus Reyes. Not Chris. Not a coworker. A client, maybe. Someone she'd never mentioned. Jake's stomach churned. He didn't know Marcus, but the receipt's date, last Thursday, the night before the party, felt like a clue. Sophia had said she was working late, but the restaurant wasn't near her office. It was upscale, the kind of place you went for a date, not a meeting. He tucked the receipt back into his wallet, his hands steady but his mind racing. This wasn't just a fight. This wasn't just a public jab. Sophia was hiding something, and Jake was done pretending he didn't see it. He paid for his half-eaten meal and walked back to his car. The highway stretched ahead, dark and endless. He didn't know where he was going, but he knew he wasn't going home. Not yet. Not until he had answers. Jake's Honda hummed along the dark Florida highway, the diner's neon glow fading in his rearview mirror. The valet receipt burned a hole in his wallet, Marcus Reyes's name looping in his mind like a warning. It was 3 a.m., and the silence in the car felt heavier than the Miami heat. His phone buzzed again on the passenger seat, 5 notifications now, none from Sophia. He didn't check. Not yet. The road stretched ahead, and with every mile, the fog of humiliation from the rooftop party cleared, replaced by a sharp need for answers. He pulled into a rest stop near a lake, the water black under a flickering streetlight. Parking, he finally grabbed his phone. No texts from Sophia. Just a promotional email, a work alert, and a missed call from an unknown number. Disappointment stung, but it was the jolt he needed. He opened their joint bank app, scrolling through transactions. Small things he'd ignored before stood out: a $120 dinner at a Coconut Grove bistro he'd never heard of, a $200 hotel charge from last month when Sophia claimed she was at a Tampa conference. The dates aligned with her. Late nights at the office. His pulse quickened. These weren't oversights. They were breadcrumbs. Jake's thumb hovered over the call log. The unknown number had left a voicemail. He hit play, bracing himself. A man's voice, low and hesitant, crackled through. "Jake, it's Ethan from Sophia's firm. I saw what happened tonight. You don't deserve that. Look, there's stuff you need to know. About her and Marcus Reyes. Call me." Ethan, Sophia's coworker, the guy who always lingered too long at their holiday parties. Jake didn't trust him, but the mention of Marcus's name was enough. He dialed back. Ethan picked up on the first ring. "Jake, you okay?" His voice was tight, like he was breaking some unspoken code. Jake skipped pleasantries. "What about Marcus?" Ethan exhaled. "He's a client. Big shot in real estate. Sophia's been working his account for months, but it's not just business. They've been close. I heard them at the office, planning dinners, trips. She's been using work as a cover. I thought you should know." Jake's grip on the phone tightened. "Why tell me now?" Ethan paused. "Because she crossed the line tonight. Humiliating you like that? It's not right." Jake hung up, his mind racing. Marcus wasn't just a name on a receipt. He was the answer to the distance in Sophia's eyes, the late nights, the locked phone. But Jake needed proof, not whispers. He drove to his brother Ryan's apartment in Coral Gables, the only place he could think to go. Ryan, 35, a loudmouth sports reporter who lived in sweatpants, opened the door with a half-eaten taco in hand. "You look like roadkill," Ryan said, stepping aside. Jake didn't laugh. "I need your Wi-Fi." Ryan raised an eyebrow but handed over the password. On Ryan's couch, Jake dug deeper. He logged into their shared cloud account, something Sophia hadn't touched in years. Her iPad backups were there, unlinked but not deleted. He found photos first: Sophia and Marcus at a rooftop lounge, her smile too warm, his arm too close. Then, a calendar entry. "Dinner with M, 8 p.m., La Marche." The same restaurant from the bank charge. Jake's stomach twisted, but he kept scrolling. A text thread, synced from her phone, stopped him cold. Messages to Marcus, dated weeks back. Jake's clueless. "Let's keep it that way." Another. "Condo's going on the market soon. We'll be free." The words hit harder than her party stunt. This wasn't a fling. Sophia was planning a future without him, down to selling their home. Jake's hands shook as he screenshot everything. Ryan, leaning over, saw the screen. "She's playing dirty, man. What's your move?" Jake didn't answer. He didn't have one, yet. But the receipt, the charges, the texts, they were pieces of a puzzle he couldn't unsee. He saved the evidence to his phone and closed the laptop. Sleep wasn't an option. By sunrise, Jake was back in his car, driving to their condo. He wasn't ready to face Sophia, but he needed something tangible, something she couldn't deny. The spare key still worked. The house was quiet, her car in the driveway. He moved fast, checking the kitchen trash where he'd found the valet stub before. There it was, buried under coffee grounds, another receipt, this one from a hotel bar, timestamped 2 nights ago. Marcus's name again, with a $50 tab for 2 drinks. Jake pocketed it, his heart pounding. As he turned to leave, the front door clicked. Sophia walked in, phone in hand, mid-laugh. She froze when she saw him. "Jake? What are you doing here?" Her voice was sharp, like he was the intruder. He held up the receipt. "Care to explain this?" Her eyes flicked to it, then back to him, calculating. "It's nothing. Work stuff." But her voice wavered, and Jake saw it, the crack in her armor. "Work stuff," he repeated, stepping closer. "Like selling our condo? Or texting Marcus about keeping me in the dark?" Sophia's face hardened. "You went through my things?" she snapped. Jake didn't flinch. "You gave me no choice." For a moment neither spoke. The air was thick with everything unsaid. Then Sophia shrugged, casual as ever. "You're making this bigger than it is. Go cool off, Jake. We'll talk later." She turned away, like he was a child throwing a tantrum. He didn't follow her. He walked out, the receipt and screenshots burning in his pocket. Back at Ryan's, he opened his laptop again, this time checking Sophia's public social profile. A new post from last night, her and Marcus at a charity event, her hand on his chest, captioned, "Best team, best night." The comments were full of heart emojis, none mentioning Jake. The betrayal wasn't just personal, it was public, deliberate. Ryan sat beside him, cracking a soda. "She's not even hiding it. What's your next step?" Jake stared at the screen, Sophia's smile mocking him. "I'm not letting her rewrite our story," he said. "She wants to play this game? I'm showing up to win." He didn't know how yet, but the evidence was stacking up, and so was his resolve. Sophia thought he'd fold, like always. She was wrong. Jake's hands gripped the steering wheel as he navigated Miami's evening traffic, the city's pulse matching the adrenaline coursing through him. The Lenox Hotel loomed ahead, its rooftop glowing with strings of lights, the site of Sophia's high-profile charity gala. He wasn't invited, but Jenna, Sophia's coworker who'd always had a soft spot for him, had tipped him off. "She's with Marcus tonight," her text read. "You should see it for yourself." Jake wasn't here to beg or cause a scene. He was here to face the truth and make sure Sophia knew he saw it. He parked a block away, the valet receipt and screenshots from Sophia's iPad backups tucked into an envelope in his jacket. His heart pounded, but his steps were steady as he rode the elevator to the rooftop. The gala was in full swing, servers weaving through clusters of guests, glasses clinking, laughter rising over the hum of a jazz quartet. Jake scanned the crowd, spotting Sophia near the terrace edge. She was radiant, her hand resting on Marcus's arm as he spoke to a group of men in suits. She laughed, tossing her hair, every bit the star of the show. Jake didn't rush in. He waited, blending into the crowd, nodding at strangers who assumed he belonged. His jacket, same one he wore the night he left the last party, was out of place among the tailored blazers, but he didn't care. This wasn't about fitting in. It was about standing up. He grabbed a water from a passing tray, his eyes never leaving Sophia. She hadn't noticed him yet, too caught up in her performance. Marcus, tall and polished, leaned in to whisper something, and her smile widened. Jake's stomach twisted, but he pushed it down. This was his moment, not theirs. When Sophia finally turned, her gaze landed on him. Her smile faltered for a split second, a crack in her perfect facade. She recovered fast, setting her glass down and walking toward him, her steps measured. "Jake," she said, her voice syrupy, like he was an uninvited guest she couldn't dismiss in public. "Didn't think this was your scene." The words were light, but her eyes were sharp, assessing. Jake met her stare, calm but unyielding. "Didn't know lying was yours," he said, loud enough for the nearest guests to glance over. Sophia's lips tightened. Before she could respond, Marcus appeared at her side, his brow raised. "Everything okay?" he asked, his tone more curious than concerned. Jake didn't answer him. He pulled the envelope from his jacket and handed it to Sophia. "Open it," he said. Her fingers hesitated, then took it, unfolding the contents slowly. Inside was the valet receipt with Marcus's name, timestamped the night before the last party, and a printed email from her to a realtor about listing their condo. Her eyes scanned the pages, her face tightening with every word. "What's this about?" Marcus asked, peering over her shoulder. Sophia didn't answer, her gaze locked on Jake. For the first time, he saw something new in her expression, not defiance, not dismissal, but fear. She thought he'd stay silent, like always. "I know everything," Jake said, his voice steady. "The dinners, the hotel, the texts about keeping me in the dark. You didn't just drift, Sophia. You planned this." The words hung between them, heavy and final. A few guests nearby turned, their conversations trailing off. Sophia opened her mouth, but no defense came. Instead, she forced a laugh, too sharp to be convincing. "You're overreacting, Jake. This isn't the place." She tried to step back, but Jake didn't let her dodge. "You made it the place when you humiliated me in front of everyone," he said. "I'm not here to make a scene. I just wanted you to know I'm not the fool you thought I was." He paused, letting the words sink in. "You didn't break me. You just lost me." Marcus shifted, his hand hovering near Sophia's shoulder, but he didn't touch her. "Lane, what's he talking about?" he asked, his voice tighter now. She didn't answer him, her eyes still on Jake, searching for a way to spin this. But the envelope in her hands was undeniable, and the murmurs from the crowd were growing. Jenna, standing a few feet away, caught Jake's eye and gave a small nod, like she approved. Jake turned to leave, his steps deliberate, the weight of the moment lifting with each one. He didn't look back. Sophia didn't call after him. Marcus didn't follow. The jazz quartet played on, but the chatter around the terrace had dipped into hushed whispers. Jake hit the elevator, the doors closing on the gala and the life he'd once known. He'd expected to feel rage or heartbreak, but instead, there was clarity. He'd faced her, not with screams or tears, but with the truth. And that was enough. Back at Ryan's apartment, Jake sank onto the couch, the envelope now empty in his pocket. Ryan, eating leftover pizza, looked up from the TV. "How'd it go?" he asked, his mouth full. Jake exhaled, almost smiling. "I showed up. That's what matters." Ryan nodded, tossing him a slice. "That's my brother." Jake took a bite, the first food he tasted all day. His phone buzzed, a text from Sophia. "You didn't have to ruin me." He stared at it, then set the phone down. Ruin her? She'd done that herself. But the night wasn't over. An hour later, another message came, this time from Ethan. "Check your email. You need to see this." Jake's heart sank as he opened his laptop. Ethan had sent a video file, a screen recording from Sophia's iPad. Jake hesitated, his finger hovering over the play button. He'd already confronted her, What more could hurt? He clicked it. Sophia's face filled the screen, lounging on their couch, wine glass in hand. She was laughing, her voice light but cruel. Jake's clueless, she said to someone off-screen. He'll fold like always. The condo's as good as sold. The other voice, male, not Marcus, replied. He won't fight you. She smirked. He's too proud to beg. Jake's breath caught. The video was timestamped 2 weeks before the party. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment betrayal. It was a plan, calculated and cold. He saved the file, his jaw tight. Sophia hadn't just moved on, she'd orchestrated his exit, betting on his silence. But she'd miscalculated. Jake wasn't folding. Not anymore. Jake sat on Ryan's couch, the laptop screen still glowing with the paused video of Sophia's betrayal. Her words, "He'll fold like always," echoed in his head, each syllable a fresh cut. The timestamp, 2 weeks before the rooftop party, proved this wasn't a moment of weakness. Sophia had planned his erasure, mocking his loyalty while sipping wine on their couch. Jake's hands shook as he closed the laptop, but his resolve hardened. She'd counted on his silence, his predictability. She was wrong. His phone buzzed again. Another message from Ethan. She's losing it. Marcus dumped her after the gala. Jake didn't reply. He didn't need to. The video, the valet receipt, the realtor email, he had enough to show the world who Sophia really was. But he didn't want revenge, not the loud, messy kind. He wanted her to face the consequences of her own choices, to see the life she'd built on lies crumble under its own weight. He forwarded the video to Jenna, the only person from Sophia's circle he trusted. Share this if it's safe, he wrote. People should know. By morning, the fallout began. Jenna had been discreet but effective, passing the video to a few key colleagues at Sophia's firm. Whispers spread fast. Sophia's social media, once a curated gallery of her perfect life, went silent. No new posts, no charity gala highlights. Ryan, scrolling through his phone over breakfast, let out a low whistle. Her firm's Slack is blowing up. People are calling her out for unprofessional conduct. Marcus is out too, his company pulled their account. Jake nodded, sipping coffee. He didn't feel triumph, just a quiet relief that the truth was out. He drove to their condo to grab his things, expecting an empty house. Instead, Sophia was there, sitting at the kitchen counter, her phone untouched beside a half-empty coffee mug. She looked up as he entered, her eyes narrow but tired. You sent that video, she said, not a question. Jake didn't flinch. You recorded it. She stood, stepping closer, her voice low. You didn't have to ruin me, Jake. I was going to tell you, in my own time. He almost laughed. Tell me what? That you were selling our home? That you were laughing about me with some guy while I was still cooking your dinner? Sophia's jaw tightened, but she didn't answer. For the first time, she had no script, no deflection. I wasn't happy, she said finally. You were so steady. It felt like I was drowning in your routine. Jake shook his head. You didn't want steady. You wanted someone who'd let you lie and get away with it. He moved past her, grabbing a duffel bag from the closet. He packed only what he needed: work files, his grandfather's chipped wooden box, a few shirts. The rest, the coffee grinder they'd bought together, the framed photo from their Asheville trip, he left behind. They belonged to a life that no longer existed. As he zipped the bag, Sophia spoke again, softer now. I didn't mean for it to end like this. Jake paused, his hand on the door. You didn't mean for me to find out, he said. That's the difference. He walked out, the key left on the counter beside her mug. The door clicked shut, and he didn't look back. Back at Ryan's, Jake's phone lit up with notifications. Colleagues from Sophia's firm were reaching out, some with condolences, others with gossip. Marcus had broken things off, unwilling to be tied to her sinking reputation. Her boss had called an urgent meeting about her conduct. Jake didn't respond to the messages. He didn't need to. The truth was doing its work. Ryan, sprawled on the couch with a beer, raised it in a mock toast. To freedom, man. You're out. Jake managed a half-smile. Not yet. That night, another message came, this time from Marcus. She played me too. It read. Thought you should know. Attached was a screenshot of text from Sophia to another man, not Marcus, dated just days ago. "Jake's out of the picture," she'd written. "We're clear now." The betrayal wasn't just double, it was layered, a web of lies she'd spun around everyone. Jake forwarded it to Jenna, adding, "Make sure this gets to the right people." He didn't need to confront Sophia again. Her own words were her undoing. The next day, Jake met with a lawyer, a friend of Ryan's who worked pro bono for guys screwed over by their exes. The separation papers were simple. Sophia had already signed them, likely expecting him to cave. Jake added one condition: she'd cover the condo's listing fees since she'd planned to sell it behind his back. The lawyer raised an eyebrow. "You're going easy on her." Jake shrugged. "I don't want her money. I want my life back." By evening, he found a small studio apartment in Wynwood, close to his design studio. It wasn't much, but it was his. He moved in with his duffel bag and a sketch pad, the first thing he'd bought for himself in years. Sitting on the bare floor, he opened the pad and drew a rough sketch of the Miami skyline, jagged and free. It wasn't perfect, but it felt like him. For the first time in months, he slept through the night. Sophia's world, meanwhile, kept unraveling. Jenna texted updates. Sophia had been demoted, her leadership roles stripped after clients complained about her ethics. Marcus was gone, and the mystery man from her texts had ghosted her. Jake didn't gloat. He didn't need to. Her lies had built a house of cards, and the truth was the wind that brought it down. He deleted her number, not out of anger, but because he didn't need it anymore. The man who'd begged for her attention was gone, replaced by someone who knew his worth. Jake woke to the hum of Miami's morning traffic filtering through his new studio apartment's window. The Wynwood air smelled of coffee and fresh paint from nearby murals, a sharp contrast to the stale tension of his old condo. His duffel bag sat unpacked in the corner, his grandfather's wooden box on the table beside a half-finished sketch of the city skyline. For the first time in months, he felt unburdened, not whole, not yet, but free. Sophia's lies, her calculated betrayal, had been exposed. Now, it was time to rebuild. He signed the separation papers that morning at a small law office, Ryan's lawyer friend sliding them across the desk. "You sure you don't want to push for more?" the lawyer asked, tapping the clause about Sophia covering the condo's listing fees. Jake shook his head. "I don't need her money. I need this to be done." He signed, the pen steady in his hand. Walking out, the sun hit his face, and the weight of the past year, Sophia's cold dismissals, her public humiliation at the rooftop party, felt lighter, like a load he'd finally set down. Back at his apartment, Jake opened his laptop, not to check Sophia's social media, but to join a virtual writers group he'd found through a local library. He'd always wanted to write, a dream he'd shelved to keep Sophia's life smooth. His first submission, a short story about a man rediscovering his voice after loss, got feedback that made him grin. Raw, real, keep going. That night, he signed up for an open mic at a dive bar, his old acoustic guitar dusted off from storage. His hands shook as he strummed, his voice cracking on the first verse, but when a stranger clapped him on the shoulder and said, "That felt honest," Jake felt something new, pride. Meanwhile, Sophia's world continued to collapse under the weight of her own actions. Jenna, ever the discreet ally, texted Jake updates. Sophia's demotion had turned into a leave of absence after more clients pulled their accounts. Her social profiles, once a highlight reel of galas and power moves, were now private or deleted. Marcus, the real estate client she'd pinned her future on, had cut contact entirely, his company issuing a statement about ethical standards. The mystery man from her texts, revealed as a colleague named David, had also vanished, unwilling to be tangled in her mess. Jake didn't ask for the updates, but Jenna sent them anyway, sensing he needed to know the consequences were real. One evening, as Jake sketched at a cafe near his studio, his phone buzzed with a message from Sophia. "Can we talk?" "No fighting, just talk." He stared at the words, his thumb hovering over the reply button. Part of him, the part that had loved her through years of small gestures, cooking her favorite meals, canceling plans to be there, wanted to hear her out. But the other part, the one that had seen her laugh about his loyalty on that video, knew better. He typed, "There's nothing left to say," and hit send. Then he blocked her number. It wasn't anger, it was closure. Weeks turned into months. Jake's life took on a rhythm he hadn't known in years. He joined a weekend art collective, his sketches turning into bold designs that caught the eye of a local gallery owner. His day job at the design studio became more than a paycheck. He pitched a campaign inspired by his own journey, earning a promotion. At the open mic, he played again, this time without shaking, his songs drawing a small but loyal crowd. Ryan, ever the loud supporter, showed up to one, shouting, "That's my brother!" loud enough to make Jake laugh mid-chord. One morning, while grabbing coffee at the same cafe, Jake overheard two women from Sophia's firm at a nearby table. "She's moving to Chicago," one said. "Fresh start, I guess. Lost her job, her network, everything." The other shook her head. "She burned every bridge." Jake didn't react, didn't turn. He paid for his coffee and stepped into the sunlight, the conversation fading behind him. Sophia's downfall wasn't his victory, it was her own doing. She'd gambled on lies and lost. That night, Jake sat on his apartment's small balcony, the city's hum a quiet backdrop. He opened his grandfather's wooden box, pulling out a photo he hadn't looked at in years, him at 20, sketching on a beach, carefree and full of dreams. He'd lost that guy somewhere, molded himself into Sophia's idea of a partner, steady, quiet, small. But now, he was back. Not the same, not untouched by the scars, but stronger for it. He tucked the photo away and picked up his guitar, strumming a new melody, one that felt like his own. Months later, at the writers' group, Jake shared a new story, one about a man who walked away from a life that no longer fit. The group clapped, one woman saying, "That's you, isn't it?" Jake smiled, nodding. "Yeah, it is." He didn't check Sophia's socials anymore, didn't wonder if she regretted it. Her voice, her laugh, her betrayal, they'd faded, replaced by his own. On a quiet Sunday, standing in front of his mirror, Jake looked himself in the eye. "You didn't lose her," he said. "You found you." The words felt true, final, like a door opening to a life he was ready to live.